Number 666. The number 666 has become this pop culture symbol of pure evil. People see it in phone numbers, license plates, and freak out. But what does the Bible actually say about 666? Revelation 13:18 says it's the number of the beast, and it's a man's number. Here's what most people miss. In ancient times, letters had numerical values. This is called gematria. When John wrote Revelation, he was writing to 7 churches facing persecution under Roman Emperor Nero. If you take the Hebrew spelling of Nero Caesar and add up the numerical values, you get 666. Some early manuscripts have 616, which is the Greek spelling of Nero Caesar. John was using coded language so Roman authorities wouldn't understand he was criticizing the emperor. The number wasn't meant to be a literal mark stamped on foreheads in 2024. It was a specific message to specific churches about persecution they were facing. Context matters. Antichrist is one person. Walk into any Christian bookstore and you'll find dozens of books trying to identify the Antichrist. Is it this political leader? That tech billionaire? Everyone's got a theory. There's just one massive problem. The Bible never describes the Antichrist as one single person coming at the end of time. The word Antichrist only appears 5 times in Scripture. 5 times. All in 1 John and 2 John. Not in Revelation, not in Daniel, not in Matthew 24. Just John's letters. And here's what he actually says. 1 John 2:18. Even now many antichrists have come. Many. Plural, not one. 1 John 2:22 defines who the Antichrist is. Who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist. Then 2 John 1:7, many deceivers have gone out into the world. They do not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. An Antichrist is anyone who denies Jesus is the Christ or denies he came in the flesh. John was writing about false teachers in the 1st century already spreading wrong doctrine. Throughout history, there have been many antichrists. It's a theological position, not a single future person. He will come soon. Every generation of Christians has been convinced they're living in the end times. World War I, World War II, the Cold War, Y2K, 2012. Every time people were certain the Antichrist was coming any day. Preachers make entire careers predicting his arrival. They point to wars, natural disasters, and say, the signs are all here. It's happening right now. Books get published, prophecy, conferences sell out. But Jesus himself addressed this directly. Matthew 24:36 says, but about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Mark 13:32 repeats it. Acts 1:7 says, it is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority. No one knows, not your pastor, not the best-selling prophecy author, not the YouTube channel with timeline. If anyone tells you they've figured it out, they are guessing. They might be sincere, but they're guessing. Every generation that's predicted the imminent arrival has been wrong. Every single one. The early church expected Jesus in their lifetime. Martin Luther thought he was living in the end times. Prophecy experts in the 1980s wrote books guaranteeing the Antichrist would appear before 2000. All wrong. This doesn't mean Christ won't return, but trying to predict when has a 2,000-year track record of failure. Antichrist is Satan. Movies and TV shows present the Antichrist as Satan himself walking around in human form. It makes for dramatic storytelling. It's just not biblical. Satan and the Antichrist are not the same being. Satan is a fallen angel, a spiritual entity. The Antichrist, according to John's letters, refers to false teachers who are human beings denying core truths about Jesus. Even in Revelation, the beast and Satan are distinct. Revelation 13 describes the beast receiving power from the dragon, which represents Satan. They're working together, but they're separate. When John wrote about Antichrist in his letters, he was addressing human false teachers, not warning about Satan showing up in person. He is from outside of church. The popular image is that the Antichrist will be an obvious outsider attacking Christianity from the outside. An atheist dictator, someone everyone will recognize as the enemy. But that's not what John describes. 1 John 2:19 says, "They went out from us, but they did not really belong to us. For if they had belonged to us, they would have remained with us." The Antichrists John warned about came from within the church. They were part of the Christian community. Then they left and started spreading false doctrine about Jesus. This is more dangerous than an obvious external threat, when false teaching comes from someone who is inside, someone who speaks the language and knows the culture. It's harder to detect. Throughout church history, the most damaging heresies came from people within Christianity who twisted the gospel. That's what John was warning about. The threat from within is often greater than the threat from without. The Antichrist will be obviously evil. Most Christians imagine a horror movie villain, someone so clearly evil that everyone will recognize him immediately. Dark, menacing, openly blasphemous. This makes identification seem simple, but that's not how deception works. 2 Corinthians 11:14-15 says, "Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. It is not surprising, then, if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness." Effective deception doesn't look like deception. Jesus warned about this in Matthew 24:24. False messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. If even believers can be deceived, these false teachers must be incredibly convincing. They're performing miracles. They're doing things that look right and sound right. The most dangerous false teaching doesn't announce itself as false. It comes wrapped in religious language and moral-sounding arguments. Biblically, the spirit of Antichrist is more likely to be convincing and even religious than obviously evil. If it were obviously evil, deception wouldn't work. The Antichrist will be a political leader, only. Every political leader people dislike becomes a candidate for Antichrist. Someone gains power in Europe must be the Antichrist. A charismatic politician rises, Antichrist. This has happened with every major figure for the past century, but John's definition has nothing to do with politics. 1 John 2:22, "Who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist." This is theological, not political. An Antichrist is someone who denies Jesus' identity. You can be a political leader and not be an Antichrist. You can have zero political power and be an Antichrist. It's about what you teach concerning Jesus. The obsession with finding the Antichrist in political leaders misses John's actual point. He was warning about false teaching within the church. When Christians spend more time speculating about which politician might be the Antichrist than guarding against false teaching about Jesus in their own churches, they've missed the entire point. The Antichrist's identity can be calculated. For centuries, Christians have tried to decode the Antichrist's identity through numbers. They take a name, assign numbers to letters, add them up, and if they get 666, they've proven that person is the Antichrist. This method has been used to prove the Antichrist is Nero, the Pope, Napoleon, Hitler, Reagan, Obama, and dozens of others. Everyone has been wrong. With enough creativity, you can make almost any name add up to 666. Use a different language, add middle names, skip letters. Eventually, you'll make it work. This isn't biblical interpretation. It's numerology disguised as theology. When John wrote about 666, he was using gematria his original audience would understand. It likely referred to Nero Caesar. It was meaningful to churches facing Roman persecution. John wasn't creating a puzzle for Christians 2,000 years later. John gave clear criteria. An Antichrist denies that Jesus is the Christ or that he came in the flesh. You don't need a calculator, you need discernment about doctrine. The Antichrist will be Jewish. The idea is that since the Antichrist will claim to be the Messiah, he must be Jewish, because only a Jewish person could convince Jews. There is zero biblical basis for this. The word Antichrist never appears with any ethnic identifier. John never mentions race, nationality, or religious background, not once. The entire theory is speculation. The requirement for being an Antichrist is denying that Jesus is the Christ or denying he came in the flesh. That's it. Nothing about ethnicity. A person of any background who teaches false doctrine fits John's definition. The Antichrist appears throughout Revelation. Here's the shocking truth. The word Antichrist never appears in the book of Revelation, not once. You'll find the beast, the dragon, the false prophet, Babylon. But the word Antichrist isn't there. The word Antichrist only appears in 1 John and 2 John. That's it. 5 total uses, all defining Antichrist as anyone who denies Jesus is the Christ or denies he came in the flesh. So where did the connection come from? Later Christian interpretation connected different biblical symbols. The beast in Revelation got linked to John's Antichrist. The man of lawlessness in 2 Thessalonians got added. Over centuries, these became one end times narrative. This isn't necessarily wrong as interpretation, but it's important to recognize what's explicit in the text versus what's later theology. The Bible never explicitly says the beast is the same as the Antichrist in John's letters. When people talk about what Revelation says about the Antichrist, they're actually talking about what later theological systems have said. Revelation was addressing 7 churches in Asia Minor using imagery they would understand. Understanding what Revelation actually says versus what's been read into it helps us interpret it more carefully. Understanding the difference between scripture and interpretation helps us read the Bible more carefully. John's warnings about Antichrist were practical and clear. Anyone denying Jesus is the Christ or that he came in the flesh is teaching Antichrist doctrine. That was true in the first century. It's still true today. The elaborate end-time scenarios, the hunt for one specific Antichrist, the calculations and predictions, most of that comes from later interpretation. When we focus on speculation about future events, we miss John's actual point, which was to guard against false teaching about Jesus happening right now.